Hey folks, welcome back to Sty Shack. Another Sty story. Boy oh boy, we're getting all them Sty stories out there, aren't we? I think my Sty story list has got to be getting close to 90. Um, I'm not even halfway through it, so not even close. So we got a lot of them to go. So this one, unusual title, Idaho Rabbits. Hey, I didn't know what else to call this video, but let's get on with it. Back in the 80s, living in northwestern Montana, and I had an old pair of hiking boots. And you guys are going, what's he talking about hiking boots for? This is supposed to be about Idaho rabbits. This is the front story. You got to understand where the rabbits fit in. That's coming. So hang in there. So I had this old pair of hiking boots when we moved out there. And I was doing a lot of logging work after I got out there. And didn't take long and those hiking boots started to tear up. Logging is really tough on a pair of footwear, I'm telling you. So I needed a good high-end pair of logging boots. And I shopped around. Well, in those days, we didn't have the internet. You had to shop around. You had to go places and go look at what they had, because there was no jumping on the internet and finding yourself a new pair of boots and have Amazon ship it to you in 2 days. That ain't happening back then. So, just through word of mouth. Now, I went and I looked at several different shops and at the boots they had, and I was looking at anywhere from $180 for a cheap pair all the way up to $350, almost $400 for a real high-end pair. And there was just, oh man, there's just no way I could swing that kind of money for a pair of boots. But I had to have them. I just had to have a new pair of good logging boots. And so I saw an ad in the paper that some fella had a pair, brand new. He had purchased, never even got to wear the dang things. He said he tried them on, they fit good. And before he ever got to even use them, he had gotten in a heavy equipment accident and severely broke his leg, and he was getting out of the business. And so he wanted to sell this brand new pair of boots, still in the box. And I looked at the brand of the boots. I don't recall it anymore. But I looked at the brand of the boots, and I did some calling around, and those boots would have cost me $250. He was willing to let them go for $85. Man, I jumped on that right away. I called him and I said, hey, I need your address. I need to know where you are. I'm on my way to grab that pair of boots. Do not sell them to anybody else. And he said, well, where do you live? And I told him, and he goes, oh my gosh. He says, now you're absolutely certain you're coming for them? I said, no, for $85. I don't care if, for crying out loud, I'll drive 300 miles. He kind of chuckled on the phone. He says, well, you're darn near going to have to do that. I go, what? He goes, well, I live in Idaho. And where you're at in Montana, and I am in Idaho, you've got to drive all the way around the Cabinet Wilderness, head south, and then come back around to where I live. He said, as the crow flies, it's probably 50 miles. He says, but you're going to have to drive about 130 miles just to get to me because you can't get over those mountains. There's nothing heading south from you that goes through the cabinets that you can take. Now there's a story behind that because we proved the fella wrong, but much later, so it didn't help me at this time. So I told him, I said, you know what, 270-mile trip for a $250 pair of boots, and gas wasn't that bad back then, price-wise. I said, I'll do it. I said, I'll be there. I said, when can I come down and get them? He said, come on down tomorrow. He says, can you get here, say, around noon? I said, done deal. I'll be there by noon. Don't sell those boots to anybody because I don't want to drive that far and find out you went and sold them. He says, no, I'll have them. So the next morning, there was 3 of us that took off on that road trip, me and a couple of buddies. And that guy's location, oh boy, did he live in a beautiful spot. We had to drive for about a half an hour up an old logging road, and then we come to this gate. The logging road came to an end, and then off to the side of that there was a little driveway and a gate, overhead gate, and I can't remember the name of his high mountain ranch. So we drove in there. I couldn't believe my eyes. Beautiful homestead in there. Big, great big white barn. Beautiful 2-story, old style colonial type home. And a big machine shed. And you could see he had logging equipment. And then a lot of little outbuildings. But what really caught my attention, and I'm not exaggerating, I'm sure there's a lot of folks out there going to say, oh yeah, now Sty's just blow that story up. I am not blowing this story up. This is what I saw. At least, a minimum. Behind his house, it's a big meadow. And it's got a big horse corral towards this small stables he had there. Otherwise, it's all open meadow. Beautiful. There's a minimum of 500 rabbits of every shape, color, size you ever saw. Them rabbits are running all over that meadow. They're domestic rabbits. They're not wild rabbits. They're just regular bunnies running everywhere. Now this is sad because just pulling in, we hit 2 of them, ran over 2 of them. You couldn't avoid them. I never saw so many rabbits. We get out of the truck and we're walking up to this guy's house. It's got a big front porch. And sitting on that porch are these 2 dogs. There was a black lab and a golden lab. And they saw us and they looked at us with indifference. So it's like, yeah, so what? Who cares about them guys? And then we realize they're looking out over that meadow. And they're just watching all them rabbits. But them dogs got a look on their face like, what do you do with so many rabbits? Well, we had the same question. Well, we knocked on the door, the fella come out, and he invited us in for a cup of coffee, and we came in, and we're sitting there having a cup of coffee. He showed me the pair of boots, and I just couldn't get my mind off the rabbits. And he's trying to brag up these boots. Well, I tried them on, they fit perfect. I said, you don't have to tell me nothing about them boots. Here's your $85. I give him the $85. I said, the boot deal's done. I want to know what's going on with all these rabbits. I've never seen that many domestic rabbits in one place before, especially running loose. They're running all over the place. He says, well, come on, you guys, let's go outside. So we went outside, and we come down off his porch, and we're kind of walking towards the small outbuildings. Well, all of a sudden I realized the one outbuilding, it's got a big long row of rabbit hutches up against it. He said, my two kids decided they wanted bunnies. He said a teacher at school told them they could each have a bunny because she had a bunch of them, and she said, I'll give you each a bunny. So she gave them each a bunny, a buck and a doe. He says, it didn't take long, and I had to start building rabbit hutches. Litter after litter after litter. He says, and then them rabbit hutches were so darn full, and I'm buying all this rabbit food. And he said, for what? Just because the kids wanted to keep their two original bunnies, but they didn't want all the bunnies. He said, so I told the kids, you take your two bunnies, put them in separate cages because we don't want them breeding any more bunnies. And they did. And he said, now we're turning all the rest of them loose and they can fend for themselves. He had me. I needed to hear this. He said, we turned them rabbits loose. He said, and we figured there was about 35 of them. He said, before the end of that first summer, he said, we had 200-300 rabbits on the property, running all over the place. And he says, I don't know why they didn't die off from inbreeding or what, but he said they just kept producing, and at all different colors, and yeah, he said, there they are. He says, but we ended up with a couple hundred. And he said, I thought, my answer's coming. Here comes winter. They're going to freeze out. Those rabbits will never make it the winter. He said, all winter, he said, he'd sit in his kitchen and watch out the window over that meadow. And he said, you'd see one of them bunnies hopping across the meadow, and then here come a big old owl in. Boom, grab that rabbit and take off. Then there'd be another bunny hopping across that meadow. Here come in an eagle. Boom, grab that bunny and take off. He said, at night, you'd hear the coyotes out there raising cane, and they're chasing rabbits. He said, getting rid of the rabbits. Rabbits will be gone by spring. He said, come that spring, there was maybe 10, 20 rabbits out of the couple hundred. He said, you saw one once in a while. And he said, doggone it, by fall, that field was full of rabbits again. He said the next spring, there was about 100 of them that made it through the winter. And he says, that was 4 years ago. He says, now we're at this stage. He says, I got at least 500 out here running around. And they're getting eaten every day. Every day something's coming in and grabbing one or two of them. And he says, but there's so many rabbits that even the predators in the area aren't keeping them down. They just can't keep them down. He said, but they do reduce the population of them enough that I have 100 or less in the spring, and then they reproduce like this. Excuse me, I've got a phone ringing. I'll shut that off. I shut that off, and hopefully it will not ring again. They can call me back if it's important. So anyway, excuse me. So here this guy's got this rabbit dilemma. And I told him, I said, you got to figure out a way to just round them all up and then probably need to butcher them all, and you can probably sell the rabbit meat. He said, we've advertised free rabbits. All you want, free rabbits. And he said, I even put on there you can take 20, 40, 50 at a time if you want. And he said, we've only gotten 2 responses, and they came and they each picked out a bunny. He said, nobody wants these darn rabbits. He says, I'm stuck with them. And he said, everybody laughs now. And they say, we are so happy that you live way up here in the backcountry, all by yourself. You don't have any neighbors. It's all Forest Service land around you. And you're stuck on that ranch, on that bunny ranch. It's just a rabbit ranch full of Idaho rabbits. I wonder what the place looks like today. Now, that was over 30 years ago. He probably had to move out. There wasn't no room for him anymore. Just rabbits. So there's a style story for you. Thanks for tagging along. Hey, don't forget, if you haven't, click my ugly mug to subscribe. Some videos for you to check out on the side. Ring the bell if you want notifications when I'm posting. And I'll be back. You know I will. And until then, you all have a very, very nice day. Bye-bye.